It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Rob Thompson, who owns and is a writer of the Sports Dream, a game day plan U. How are you doing today?
Life is good, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to be a sports book writer?
I wasn't really had no plans for it. It just basically happened after I sold my last business in 2016. I saw a need in the marketplace to share a story and to help out as many career seekers that want to be in the sports industry. So this is my letter to them, and this is a playbook for them to utilize to hopefully walk through the right doors that's a good fit for them.
What was it like creating the East Coast Recruiting Academy?
Oh, that was my very first business I ever started when I was 23 years old. Yeah. So at that point, this is back in the early 90s, I was coaching college football at Boston University. And I saw that, man, if I could just pick up with the phone and look at one list of kids, at that time I was recruiting JUCO kids in California, that, man, if there was just one source that I could go to help me, find the kids that I'm looking for, the prospects that I'm looking for. And there wasn't at that time. This is early 90s. So I started East Coast Recruiting Agency. It was focusing on kids in the Northeast that are high school football players and being able to kind of bring them up to the surface and connect them to colleges across the country, because college football coaches only travel one distance, and that's south. That's never south or west. That's typically not Northeast. So I wanted to help those kids out as much as possible, which I did. It was a good first business.
What was it like running the NFL grassroots for the youth program?
Yeah, so that was a passion project, and I was very, very fortunate and lucky at the right time to get in with the National Football League and be on the ground floor with the founding members of that youth development program. So it was youth development / fan development, both here domestically and internationally. And I was completely honored and privileged and very grateful for that, to be able to get in there, create the rules, execute the programming, set up leagues throughout the United States and domestically, and then ultimately put on the national championships and the global championships. And it was a good part of my career, and I'm really, really thankful for it.
What was it like transitioning from the NFL side to the AFL side, being a general manager?
Well, I wanted to at some point. It was great to grow the business and to grow the participation of youth sports for boys and girls 6 to 14. But at that point now, I started to get where I wanted to work back with the team again. Coming from the coaching side of the business, now kind of getting into the business side, I wanted to get back to that business coaching side, to be a general manager in the Arena Football League allowed me to do both, combine those two together, which is, your coach is usually the general manager, but the role I had was a hybrid between the general manager and the president. So on all the commercial side of the business, so ticket sales, hospitality, branding, community outreach, all of those things. And it was just a great piece of the puzzle and part of the bricks that laid the foundation for my career.
What was it like becoming the general manager of an AFL football team, and what football team were you the general manager of?
It was an expansion team. It was Albany Conquest, and that was tremendous. We got to create the the brand, the name, sell all the season tickets, put together the team, and we ended up going 36-3 or 36-6 in 2 years, winning 2 division titles. Going through 2 head coaches, two ownership groups, but we kept the core of the business and the core of the folks together, including the players, because they're only on 1-year contracts. So that was, again, another incredible experience.
Of course, as the general manager of the AFL, you say a 1-year contract. How difficult was it whenever you had to know, okay, they're on a 1-year contract, you have to re-up them every year?
Well, it just depended on where they were in their life cycle of their life. If they wanted to continue to play, gave them an out, gave us an out. You just had to treat them better. It wasn't really about the location as much it was from top down. To me, even though they were arena football players, The only thing that separated them from the NFL or CFL was zeros. They're still getting paid to play a sport, which 99.9% of the people throughout the world don't get to do in their lives. These guys do. And so just because it's the AFL, there's no difference than minor league hockey or minor league baseball. They're still professional athletes. So for us to be able to get these guys, we had to treat them great. We had to treat them like professionals. And it was the little details that we did for them to make them feel that way. So to get them to come back for that second year with us wasn't very difficult to do at all. They were itching to come back with us. So it was great.
What was the transition like for you from going from a general manager of the AFL to now writing your own book called Sports Dream Jobs?
Well, it wasn't really it wasn't something I did full time. I mean, I transitioned into owning my own company. Well, we acquired a business which was North American Sports Group, and once we sold that company, we transitioned. I had some free time, so that's when I wrote the book, and I transitioned over to higher ed to go back to my alma mater. So between that, my podcast and the book all kind of came at the right time for me to kind of, I guess, open up the doors and redefine myself, who I was with that point in my life and my career. And it was something that I wanted to share. I was a guy who struggled with dyslexia earlier on as an adult until I realized what it was and how I used certain superpowers with dyslexia, which is EQ, not as much IQ, but it was really EQ. And I know you could be as successful in life if you have a massive amount of EQ, but the key was always the self-discovery. So the book is really about that part of it, of understanding yourself, your limitations, be honest with it, and then finding the right place that you're going to find in the industry, because it's so broad and so expansive beyond being a general manager of a team or being on Sports Center. There's so many jobs that people don't see that's below the surface, like an iceberg. And those are the jobs that I say, well, let's find out about you first. Let's discover you, your resources, the things that you have in your life, your skill sets, your ability to grow, and let's put you in a place to open up those doors, whether it's starting off as a volunteer, but the discovery of the industry and being able to kind of stick with it. It's one thing to get a job in sports. Brandon, you obviously could do it, right? You're reporting on sports through your podcast, right? And, you volunteer to do it. You put your time and effort into it, do it. And after a while, the market will tell you whether you're good enough or whether you have talent enough. And then at some point, someone's going to pay you to do it. And, that's the difference between the sports industry and everybody. And there's a long line of people that want to do it, so getting talent and being talented and having the effort and attitude and combining all of those things together. It's one thing to get a job in the industry, but it's another thing to have a career in the industry. And that's the hardest thing.
Can you talk about, of course, your podcast and what you cover on it?
Yeah, so it started with Interview with Influencers. That was my first podcast that now Mike Scharfenberg has, who's now an account executive with Tennessee Titans. So he came up through an internship program at our alma mater. Interview with Influencers, I started 5 years ago to share the stories of executives and influencers in the sports industry, so other people could relate to them, that not everybody's father or grandfather or an uncle owned the team, and hence the book that I ended up, how to land a dream job if dad doesn't own the team. But the podcast became my platform to share those stories quickly, efficiently, and easily for me, because I didn't have a lot of time, nor do I have experience in editing and doing interviews. So the podcast opened up a lot of doors for me. It helped me create the book, which there's a lot of stories in there of people that I interviewed. And then it opened up where I led now to higher education. So podcast and creating content and sharing content, especially other people's stories, hence what we're doing here. I think it makes you aware of other people in the marketplace that you may resonate with one-on-one. You like their story, there's something about them, and something that possibly inspires you to keep going, to not give up, to have hope, within your career and your business. And that's why I started a podcast. Today, it's startup stories. So we still have the Interview with Influencers, which Mike does. I do startup stories. So I share stories of people that are startups, regardless of the industry. And it's very, very satisfying and rewarding.
That's so amazing. What was the process like of writing the Sports Dream Job Playbook?
I basically took stories, like I said, I took stories that came from my podcast. So there were definitely some folks that I interviewed that I wanted to tell their stories, that how it kind of tied into the book. which was about mentorship. I wanted to know what that process was above and beyond. It's about your LinkedIn and it's about your resume. So I talk a lot about mentors, what kind of mentors you should have, what kind of lifestyle you should have as a business professional. Some things that maybe you don't inherently have in your life that you've learned earlier on. The character of who you are. Are you reliable? Are you trustworthy? Are you the person that's going to do the right thing every day? Do you get up and set your schedule? These are things that you learn as a student athlete that you carry over into your life as a business executive. So the process was about that part of it, was taking a piece of the book and a piece of my podcast and kind of expanding upon, the steps that you need for you personally. Not just, you could have a lot of holes in your resume, but you can make up for it by filling in those holes with the quality and the character of who you are in your life.
Of course, before
So there you have
COVID,
it.
of course, before COVID, did you go on any book tours to advertise your book?
No, I just used the community that I built. So the great thing about the podcast is I built up enough of a following that when I released my book, and of course my friends and family, but then when I released my book, I had a couple of schools. So it's a playbook. It's a workbook for, people that want to be in the industry or people pivoting. So I didn't go on any tours. I used Amazon. I published it on Amazon. So I used their marketing tools, their links, and it was really focusing on groups, so there could be a class of high school kids, a lot was bought from international students in classrooms and schools that bought the book in bulk. So for some reason, it became the numbers thing. It became a #1 Amazon bestseller within that sports business category for the summer of 2018, which was kind of cool. But it really was, I didn't just write the book I had the podcast for a good 3 years. So I had a good enough following that when I released the book, people were very thankful, and they were very nice to go out and purchase it and then leave me some comments or remarks. And by the algorithm of Amazon, that creates a little bit more scalability, and you could Google search it, you could find those books easier. So yeah.
Are there any future books that you plan on writing?
I do. I got a couple more in me. This, like I said, that book was more of a playbook. It wasn't, it's only 100 and something pages. So there wasn't a lot of meat and potatoes to it. It was a very easy book, a very easy guide to use, and there's some workbooks in it. But I plan on writing my book about my big story. It's called Dirty Thirsty, Broke and Tired. The story of a sports marketing executive. So it's kind of like in your career, and especially in sports, being one of those things, thirsty, dirty, tired, and broke, you're pretty much going to be all of them during your time in the sports industry. And this is a book about those stories. So it's at some point I'll get around to writing it, but right now I got too much stuff to do. I still want to add some chapters in my life to be able to tell those stories in it when I'm not done yet. So
That's so amazing. What is the GamePlanU about?
yeah, so GamePlanU was created. It's a nonprofit organization. It's a community of startup founders and startups in sports technology, innovation, health and wellness, lifestyle, content creators, gamers, everybody that's kind of in that sports world from the tech side of it. So we wanted a place to be able to connect those founders, those early to mid-growth startups, to investors, to executives, to educators, and then to future leaders in the industry. So those career seekers. So we created a community of folks that are interested in that startup space, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, investors, angel investors, VCs, and then executives in the industry that are looking for deal flow, looking for that next big thing, that next big tech platform, or whatever that next product is. So GamePlanU works with education, works with accelerators, works with VCs. We're just a community that connects everybody together.
How has your past experience, of course, working in the NFL and the AFL, helped you to where you are now, being a sports book author and now working with GamePlanU?
I think everything in life that you experience, not just in business, but, raising 4 kids, being married for 30 years, all of those things have much more value to me, have added much more to anything in my life than a stop at a job. Most of a stop at a job is trying to deal with other people's agendas, except, now it's when you own your own company, it's your agenda. But the combination of the places that I've been able to work and be a part of some incredible organizations to help them grow their businesses, and coupled with having an unbelievable supporter at home, my wife and our 4 kids that we raised together into adulthood, and being along that journey with them together, there's certain attributes that you need in your life to be able to have. My success was never measured upon what I did in business to me. Even though there's things that I did as an athlete that I could have easily put as the first thing that we wanted to talk about. But at this point, no one cares about it. It was only just a little bit of that foundation. And then there's the next part of my life as an entrepreneur and working for some, the NFL and the Walt Disney Company. Then the next layer, but all of that is held together by my life with my wife and my children. That is the core. That's the framing of this building that we built. The business side of it's just the foundation, but the core of what allowed me to do all these other things was my wife and my partner, Margaret, and then the support of my children. Nothing would have mattered without them being a part of that. So that's how I drill it down. You're only remembered. No one cares how much money you had. No one gives a crap where you worked after a while. They just care about you as a person and what you're able to do to help the world and help other people. And are you committed to the things that you have committed to in your life? And I've been committed to my family for a very long time. And that has that kind of trickled out into my career. And so whether I worked in the sports industry or sold socks for a living, doesn't matter. It all starts with you and the people around you and your family.
That's amazing. What advice would you give somebody looking to work in professional sports and then, of course, write their own sports book?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have our own story. There's an audience for everybody. Everybody. Doesn't matter if you have a wide lane or a narrow lane of people that are like-minded or within your age group or look like you. There's always going to be somebody that you could help and inspire. For me, if somebody wanted to get into the sports industry, the best way to start for me and for anybody who's listening or watching would be to go to Rob Thompson Life, life.com. And there's ways that we work with. We have programs, and I have programs that I do one-on-one mentoring, coaching. So whether it's how to start a podcast course or how to get into the sports industry course, I have all of those along with the workbooks. And then one-on-one mentoring is what I do and help as many people as I can. So that's the easiest way to do it. Go to my website, take a look at what's in there. And if anything resonates with you, you're free to set up a one-on-one call, a discovery call, an intro call with me just to see if that connection is there. And if there is, happy to help.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
So it's at Rob Thompson Life on Instagram. It's probably the best way to follow me. And I know it's kind of I used to have it live, but I just, whatever. So it's Rob Thompson Life is there. And then certainly on LinkedIn, you could find me. And that's another great place so between Instagram and LinkedIn are the two places that I really look at daily.
Thank you again, Rob Thompson, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the GamePlanU and the Sports Dream Job Playbook.
Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Rob, for your interview, and best of luck.
Same. Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.